Now to renewable energy. This one's interesting because I'm not going to say that solar and wind aren't capable of providing a lot of what we need for energy. But here's the thing. If we're going to do it, we need a real plan. Okay? This idea of, just periodically we'll just allocate whatever we have left and, make a grant and throw it at some clean energy company for a bit. And there you go, That's not going to work. That's not thought through, and that doesn't make any sense. If we are actually going to consider global warming as a real threat to humanity, we need to come up with a roadmap on how to actually solve it. Not just willy-nilly throw a little bit here and throw a little bit there. We have to figure out, okay, this is what we got to work with. We have this many people on the planet. They're going to consume this much energy. That means we need exactly this many solar panels, we need exactly this much battery backup, and we need exactly this many windmills based on what we know from the planet. Okay? So now that we know that, we have to figure out, how do we build that? That right there, the solution. How do we build the solution? Not how do we build random spatterings of solar and wind farms all over the place, but how do we build an actual solution? And one thing that I think that most people don't consider in terms of this is the amount of solar panels that you would need to cover the planet with in order to accommodate all of our energy needs is so mind-bogglingly vast. You can't, it's ridiculous. If you actually crunch the numbers on it, you're looking at, you would basically have to, and this is not even considering a battery backup or off time generation or any of that, or infrastructure upgrades for capacity. Considering none of that, you're still looking at having to blanket basically Texas, the state of Texas, with solar panels in order to accommodate the entire energy consumption of the planet. And when I say the entire energy consumption of the planet, I am not just talking about flicking on your light switch and having the lights come on the ceiling. I am talking about completely replacing all carbon-based energy sources. So that means no more cars, no more planes, no more big trucks. Get rid of all that. Power everyone's home with electricity, everyone's lights, and all this stuff. And everything, every process that we do is electricity coming from the grid. You'd have to cover Texas. Because anything short of that just isn't good enough. Okay, let's say, for the sake of argument, that we could, over the course of the next 5 years, right, completely make every single electrical source on the grid from renewable energy, right? Everything that you plug in the wall is coming from renewable energy. Well, if you don't replace the cars on the road, then what's the point? If you don't replace some cars on the road, it's not good enough. You're still going to destroy the world. And as I've discussed previously, lithium-ion battery packs in electric cars is not the solution either. But let's say, for the sake of argument, even if it was the solution, you would still have to generate all the electricity to power those cars, plus heating your home, plus running your lights, plus every other process. So, I mean, it's an absolutely ridiculous amount of geography. And for those of you that would hear me say, oh, you'd have to cover Texas, and be like, oh, well, we can build cities and stuff like that. Not even close to a comparison. If you look at the state of New York, and you consider New York City's landmass within the state, if the state's like this, New York City is a pinprick, all right? The actual surface area across the earth that human beings actually inhabit is very small. The amount of damage that we do, considering we occupy such a small space, is pretty amazing. Nonetheless, our actual main population centers are not that big, really. So, covering all of Texas, you're looking at numbers in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. Well, I think the GDP of the United States lands somewhere in and about 80 trillion, 85 trillion every year. I might be wrong about that, but I think I'm pretty close. That would basically, to build the solar panels that we would need to power the planet would require every man, woman, and child in the United States just quitting their jobs. Nobody needs food anymore. Nobody needs houses anymore. And for 2 or 3 straight years working in factories to build solar panels. That's what you're looking at. And not just that, like mining the materials to build these insanely huge solar panels and all this stuff. So now that sounds all very doom and gloom and very pessimistic. And it is. It is if we're considering how we build things now. That how we build things now isn't necessarily the best way to build things. This goes back to automation, okay? If we are, as human beings, going to have any hope in hell of supplying the earth with power, the entire planet, our entire population, with 100% renewable energy, we are going to require a second industrial revolution. It will be an industrial project larger than every other thing that human beings have ever attempted times 10. Okay, it's going to make going to the moon look like a trip to the convenience store. It will be huge, and the only way that we can accomplish that is through mass automation. And I'm talking about a specific government incentive for programmers, machinists, R&D people. We need to build a system where, those robotic mechanical arms that do things in factories? We need to build a robotic mechanical arm that can build a robotic mechanical arm. And then you can set that one up next to it, and it can build the robotic mechanical arm. And then it can. And then, so it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Once we have a sufficient infrastructure of tools in which to automate, and once we have literally thousands upon thousands of massive factories constantly shipping in material, constantly shipping out material, the factories the size that you'd need 10 times the 10 times Earth's population to make them work if you were going to use standard human being powered commercial factory processes. And you would need them to be running 24/7.